You know, when you picture the perfect family dog, there's a really good chance a Labrador Retriever pops into your head. There's the classic, friendly, loyal, always happy to see you. But what if I told you that the dog we know and love today has a history that's, well, a lot more recent and a lot more constructed than you'd ever guess? Let's get into the surprising story of how the world's favorite dog was literally invented.
First off, let's just wrap our heads around how popular these dogs are. For over 30 years straight, the Lab was the #1 most popular dog breed in the United States. I mean, think about that. 30 years. That's an absolutely incredible reign. They're not just pets. They are a full-blown cultural icon.
And it's really no surprise why, right? Their versatility is just off the charts. You can see them as a gentle family companion, a super-focused guide dog, a heroic search and rescue worker, a top-notch hunting partner, or a comforting therapy animal. It really seems like there's nothing a Lab can't do. So where did this amazing jack-of-all-trades even come from?
Well, to find out, we have to take a trip back in time. And we're going far away from the suburbs and into the harsh, freezing waters of the North Atlantic. Because the story of the Lab doesn't actually start in Labrador, but on the nearby island of Newfoundland. So, say hello to the true ancestor of our modern Labrador, the St. John's water dog. Now, this was not a breed like we think of one today. Not at all. It was a type of working dog, an absolutely essential partner for fishermen. Their whole job was to leap into that freezing ocean to haul in fishing nets, retrieve lines, and even dive for cod that had wriggled off the hook. Tough, tough dogs. So, back in the early 1800s, some English aristocrats visiting Canada saw these dogs in action and were just completely blown away. The second Earl of Malmesbury was one of the first to bring them back to England, and his description is just perfect. He wrote that its coat turns the water off like oil, and that it has a tail like an otter. That thick, rudder-like tail is still a hallmark of the breed today. And right here, this is where the big transformation really kicks into gear. All through the 1800s, those British nobles started selectively breeding these Canadian imports. By the 1880s, they were actually working together, combining their kennels to refine and standardize this dog into something totally new. And just like that, a rugged working dog from the colonies became the officially recognized Labrador Retriever. A formal British breed was born. Okay, so we need to pause here, because this is where the story takes a really fascinating turn. The entire idea of a purebred dog with a written rulebook, it's a surprisingly modern thing. It's a Victorian invention, and it kind of challenges everything we think we know about ancient dog breeds.
So it makes you ask, what does purebred actually mean? Because before the mid-1800s, the concept, it just didn't exist in the same way. Dogs were defined by something completely different. This really shows the fundamental shift. Before the rise of dog shows in the Victorian era, dogs were all about their function. A dog was a retriever because it retrieved things, plain and simple. What it could do was what mattered. But after the 1850s, with the start of dog shows, the focus flipped entirely to form. It was no longer about what the dog did, but what it looked like.
And the main tool for this new obsession with looks was the breed standard. For the very first time, groups of enthusiasts who called themselves the dog fancy sat down and wrote out these super precise rules for what a breed's ideal height, coat, head shape, and even temperament should be. All of a sudden, dogs were being judged against a written blueprint, not their real-world skills. Uniformity became the new goal. And if you want a perfect example of how manufactured this whole process could be, just look at the Irish Wolfhound. I mean, the original dog was extinct. So in the 1870s, a British army captain decided to just bring it back. He looked at old drawings, created a design for what he thought the dog should look like, and then he just started crossbreeding other big dogs like Scottish Deerhounds and Great Danes to create a new dog that matched his vision. He literally invented a breed from scratch. So how does this idea of invention play out inside the Labrador breed itself? Honestly, there is no better example of human preference shaping a breed than the story of the chocolate Labrador. For decades, you barely saw them, not because the gene wasn't there, but simply because the color wasn't fashionable.
It's kind of like a genetic detective story. We can trace that recessive chocolate gene all the way back to some of the first labs, like a dog named Buclo Avon, born in 1885. But for the next 70-plus years, that gene just got passed down silently. Chocolate-colored pups, which they called liver back then, were seen as undesirable by the dog fancy, and a lot of times they weren't even registered. It wasn't until the 1960s, when a couple of prominent chocolate labs showed up in the show ring, that the colors suddenly became popular, and this whole hidden genetic history came to light.
So, what does this all mean for the Lab that might be sitting on your couch right now? Well, it means the dog we know and love today is a true masterpiece. But it's a masterpiece that's a very deliberate blend of natural ability and human design.
It's actually kind of sad. The original St. John's water dog completely died out in Newfoundland by the late 1970s. But its legacy, its most essential traits, that love of water, the gentle mouth, that innate desire to retrieve something for you, that loyal temperament, that's what those early British breeders fell in love with. They captured the soul of that working dog and they preserved it inside the standardized form we all recognize today.
So it leaves us with this really cool question to think about. Is our beloved Labrador Retriever a pure, ancient bloodline that stretches back through time? Or is it more like a carefully curated piece of Victorian art, designed and perfected by human hands? The answer, it seems, is that it's a little bit of both.